Chapter 4. Relax as it is. Once we know this instruction, we can put it into practice. Then it's up to us what happens next. Ultimately, it comes down to the question of just how willing we are to lighten up and loosen our grip. How honest do we want to be with ourselves? The meditation instruction that Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche gives to this student is called Samatha Vipassana meditation. When Trungpa Rinpoche first taught in the West, he told his students to simply open their mind and relax. If thought distracted them, they could simply let the thoughts dissolve and just come back to that open, relaxed state of mind. After a few years, Rinpoche realized that some of the people who come to him found this simple instruction somewhat impossible to do, and that they needed a bit more technique in order to proceed. At that point, without really changing the basic intent of the meditation, he nevertheless began to give the instruction a bit differently. He put more emphasis on posture and taught people to put very light attention on their out-breath. Later he said that the out-breath was as close as you could come to simply resting the mind in its natural open state and still have an object to which to return. He emphasized that it should be just the ordinary out-breath, not manipulated in any way, and that the attention should be soft, a sort of touch and go approach. He said that about 25% of attention should be on the breath, so that one was still aware of one's surrounding and didn't consider them as an intrusion or an obstacle to meditation. Years later, he used a humorous analogy comparing a meditator to someone all dressed up in a costume and holding a spoonful of water. One could be happily sitting there in one's fancy costume and still be quite undistracted from the spoonful of water in one's hand. The point wasn't to try to achieve some special state or to transcend the sounds and movement of ordinary life. Rather, we were encouraged to relax more completely with our environment and to appreciate the world around us and the ordinary truth that take place in every moment. Most meditation techniques use an object of meditation, something you return to again and again, no matter what's going on in your mind. Through rain, hail, snow and sleet, fair weather and fall, you simply return to the object of meditation. In this case, the out-breath is the object of meditation, the elusive, fluid, ever-changing out-breath, ungraspable and yet continuously arising. When you breathe in, it's like a pause or a gap. There is nothing particular to do except wait for the next out-breath. I once explained this technique to a friend who had spent years doing a very focused concentration on both in and out breath as well as another object. When she heard this instruction, she said, "But that's impossible. No one could do this. There is a whole part where there is nothing to be aware of." That was the first time I realized that built right into the instruction was the opportunity to completely let go. I heard Zen teacher talk of meditation as the willingness to die over and over again. And there it was, as each breath went out and dissolved, there was the chain to die all that had gone before and to relax instead of panic. Rinpoche asked us a meditation instruction not to speak of concentrating on the out-breath, but to use more fluid language. So we would tell students to touch the out-breath and let it go, or to have a light and gentle attention on the out-breath, or to be one with the breath as it relax outward. The basic guideline was still to open and relax without adding anything extra, without conceptualizing, but to keep returning to the mind just as it is, clear, lucid, and fresh. After some time, Rinpoche added another refinement to the instruction. He began to ask us to label our thoughts, thinking. We will be sitting there with the out-breath, and before we know that what had happened, we were gone, planning, worrying, fantasizing completely in another world, who were totally made of thoughts. At that point, when we realized we were gone off, we were instructed to say to ourselves, thinking, and without making a big deal, to simply return again to the out-breath. I once saw someone do a dance about this. The dancer came on stage and sat in meditation posture. In a few seconds, thoughts of passion began to arise. The dancer moved through the process, becoming more and more frenzied as just a tiny glimpse of passion began to escalate until it was a full-blown sexuality fantasy. Then a small bell rang, and a calm voice said, thinking, and the dancer relaxed back into the meditation posture. About 5 seconds later, the dance of rage began, again starting a small irritation, then exploding more and more widely. Then came the dance of loneliness, then the dance of drowniness, and each time the bell would ring and the voice would say, thinking, and the dancer would simply relax for a little longer and a little longer into what began to feel like the immense peace and spaciousness of simply sitting there. Saying, thinking is a very interesting point in meditation. It is the point at which we can consciously train in gentleness and in developing a non-judgmental attitude. The word for loving kindness in Sanskrit is Maitri. Maitri is also translated as unconditional friendliness. So each time you say to yourself, thinking, you are cultivating that unconditional friendliness toward whatever arises in your mind. Since this kind of unconditional compassion is difficult to come by, the simple and direct method for awakening is exceedingly precious. Sometimes we feel guilty, sometimes arrogant, sometimes our thoughts and memories terrify us and our mind all the time. And when we sit, we are providing a lot of space for all of them to arise. Like clouds in a big sky or wave in a vast sea, all our thoughts are given space to appear. If one hangs on and sweeps us away, whether we call it pleasant or unpleasant, the instruction is to label it all thinking with as much openness and kindness as we can muster, and let it dissolve back into the big sky. When the cloud and wave immediately return, it is no problem. We just acknowledge them again and again with unconditional friendliness, labeling them as just thinking and letting them go again and again. Sometimes people use meditation to try to avoid bad feeling and disturbing thought. We might try to use the labeling a way to get rid of what bothers us, and if we connect with something blissful or inspiring, we might think we have finally got it and try to stay where there is peace and harmony and nothing to fear. So right from the beginning, it's helpful to always remind yourself that meditation is about opening and relaxing with whatever arises without picking and choosing. It's definitely not meant to repress anything, and is not intended to encourage grasping either. Allen Ginsberg used the expression surprise mind. You sit down and wham, a rather nasty surprise arises. so be it. This part is not to be rejected, but compassionately acknowledged as thinking and let go. Then, wow, a very delicious surprise appears. Okay, so be it. This part is not to be clung to, but compassionately acknowledged as thinking and let go. The surprises are we find endless. Milarepa in 12th century Tibetan yogi sang wonderful song about the proper way to meditate. In one song he said that mind has more projection than there are dust motes in some bin, and that even 100 of spear couldn't put an end to that. So as meditator we might as well stop struggling against our thoughts and realize that honesty and humor are far more inspiring and helpful than any kind of solemn religious striving for against anything. In any case, the point is not to try to get rid of thoughts, but rather to see their true nature. Thought will run us around in circles if we buy into them, but really they are like dream image. They are like an illusion, not really all that solid. They are, as we say, just thinking. Over the year, Rinpoche continued to refine the instruction on posture. He said it was never a good idea to struggle in meditation, so if our leg or back were hurting, we were told it was fine to move. However, it became clear that by working with proper posture, it was possible to become far more relaxed and settle in one's body by making very subtle adjustments. Large movement brought comfort for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we just wanted to sit again. Eventually, we began following the 6 points of good posture as way to really settle down. The 6 points are seats, leg, torso, hands, eyes, and mouth. And the instruction is as follows. First, whether sitting on a cushion on the floor or in a chair, the seat should be flat, not tilting to the right or left or to the back or front. 2. The legs are crossed comfortably in front of you, or if you are sitting in a chair, the feet are flat on the floor and the knees are a few inches apart. The torso from the head to the seat is upright, with a strong back and an open front. If sitting in a chair, it is best not to lean back. If you start to slouch, simply sit upright again. The hands are open with palms down, resting on the thighs. The eyes are open, indicating the attitude of remaining awake and relaxed with all that occurs. The eye gaze is slightly downward and directed about 4 to 6 feet in front. The mouth is very slightly open so that the jaw is relaxed and air can move easily through both mouth and nose. The tip of tongue can be placed on the roof of the mouth. Each time you sit down to meditate, you can run through the 6 points, and anytime you feel distracted during your meditation, you can bring your attention back to your body and run through the 6 points. Then, with a sense of starting afresh, return once again to the out-breath. If you find that thoughts have carried you away, don't worry about it. Simply say to yourself, thinking, and come back to the openness and relaxation of the out-breath. Again and again, just come back to the being right where you are. In the beginning, people sometimes find the meditation exciting. It is like a new project, and you think that if you do it, perhaps all the unwanted stuff will go away and you'll become open, non-judgmental, and unconditionally friendly. But after a while, the sense of project wears out. You just find time each day and you sit down with yourself. You come back to the breath over and over. through boredom, edginess, fear, and well-being. This perseverance and repetition, when done with honestly, a light touch, humor, and kindness, is its own reward. Once we know that instruction we can put into practice, then it's up to us what happens next. Ultimately, it's come down to the question of just how willing we are to lighten up and loosen our grip. How honest do we want to be with ourselves?